Hey y'all, welcome to the very first episode of the Dear Jami podcast. This is exciting for me, and as I learn all of the pieces and equipment and all the things, I promise that this will evolve to become better and better every time. But tonight, we are bare bones starting from scratch. Um, and I want this to be extremely conversational and to really invoke thought and for people to be comfortable in the future of potentially sharing their own secret stories or thoughts on conspiracies and really dive into this together to where it can be an outlet or a place to feel or a place to think, and essentially to for all of us to just connect. This is being recorded as a podcast. So originally, this will be on forever on YouTube, but eventually it will become part of Spotify and other things. And as we evolve, I promise they'll get better. And this is my first one. So welcome to the Dear Jami podcast, where we talk about stories that have been shared with me, where we talk about secrets that don't belong to me. And then at the end, we're going to dive into a conspiracy as well. This will be happening at 8 o'clock Central on every Thursday, and I'm excited to get started. So, first, I have a story to share, and this is a completely anonymous one. I want to make sure that I have it that I have it correct. Completely anonymous. It was an email that came to me, and the headline says advice and when you met Lester. And I thought this is a very fun and exciting place to start because, it connects things here, but also allows me to be able to share this person's thoughts. Okay. So it says, I know this has been discussed many times, and I'm going to paraphrase some of this. It says, but I don't remember. How did you find Lester? How did you reach out to someone that had no idea who you were, and were you scared? I recently also came across someone online that I can't stop thinking about. Before bed, when I wake up, to the point that I'm giving myself anxiety. Girl, this guy doesn't know I even exist. I came across his 2 YouTubes while watching other clips about the terrible plane crash in Washington. He's a retired naval aviator that has been putting videos out about all the near misses. He's also a reserve cop in a small town in Louisiana and a dad to a dog that he swears saved his life at a time when he was at the end. It's also an author. He is also an author and bestseller of at least 10 books. How did you explain to your family and friends that you found a random guy online that you want to move 700 miles to be with? How did you ever reach out and even let Lester know who you were? I know you're incredibly busy, but I'd love a reply, as I don't know anyone else that has ever taken and done the things that you have. So I replied to her, and I had to share the story of I didn't reach out to Lester. I didn't even know that what Lester looked like or any of those things. So I didn't have the same scenario that she has. And all I told her was what's it going to hurt for you to reach out? What is it going to be to you to try to make that connection? What's the worst that someone can say? And she said that she replied back, okay? She said, I don't know, but there's a sadness about him. I watch more videos than I care to admit, but there's something that has been pulling at my soul to reach out and just give him props for all he's done and how successful he is. Maybe it's not even that I want to date him or anything else. I just need to tell him of how moved I am by his videos. She said, my dilemma is I can't stop thinking about him, and I don't know him and he doesn't know me. He said, how many viewers have been in my shoes? Do I reach out? What if they thought that I was a stalker? I mean, he has a lot of people that connect with him. So I want to sit here and I want to think about the advice. What would you say to this person who is really in a space of she's found a connection with someone online, and she obviously feels something that she wants to find a way to be a part of his life, and how would you encapsulate that to be confident but not creepy? And then also, really think about how crazy is it to think that that is a real space? And how do you make it go away? Wendy says reach out. And I don't blame you for thinking that, because I think so too. Like, I think the term that the kids use right now is like shoot your shot. And it's hard to think that way. So my advice, I think, would be that what's it going to hurt to reach out and to put yourself out there? And the reason that there is, it's just reaching out in messaging. It's not like you're showing up at this person's door. Don't do that. Don't do that. But reach out and just put it out there about, like, say how you feel. And it doesn't make you, don't go overboard. Would be my first advice. You only live one time. And what if this is your person? I mean, yes, Lester and I connected. It was never the intention, though, of like dating. It wasn't. I just wanted to help. And it evolved to much more. But I just don't think that there's any harm in starting a conversation. And maybe that will be something. Maybe it won't. Maybe that person that he is in video is nothing like the person in real life as well. And that's really possible as well. So I think that it doesn't hurt to try. And you're right, Lissa and Jake. I think Lissa reached out to Jake first, if I'm not mistaken. Christina says, "Don't show up in a wedding dress." That's probably really appropriate. And at least put your mind at ease, because if it's something you can't get off your mind, then maybe there's something that is like, pulling at that. I'm curious to know, how many of you have ever been in that situation where, whether it's online or somebody that you have met at work, or in a scenario that maybe it's a far stretch, maybe they did notice you or maybe they didn't, but like, have you ever put yourself out there in a space of like, hi, you don't know me, but, because that is a vulnerable space to be in. And I think it's different now that I'm also 42, because I have no idea how old this person is. But I also think that, somebody says I met my husband online. I think that in my younger days, there's no way on earth that I would have ever thought to do any of those things. But now I look at life and say, like, I think I used to be afraid of no. In every facet, whether it be I want to request a day off at work, or I want to, go spend a day doing XYZ, I would always bury my own wants and dreams and desires because I was so terrified of being told no. And I think now, as I've, I would say, grown into my own skin, it's not that I'm not afraid of no, because I'm still afraid of no in some facets. But now I'm more in the space of like, if I don't take that chance, you'll always think about what you didn't do. Meletta met her husband in an AOL chat room. I love that. Rosa met her husband online. Jackie says, trust your guts and your instincts. And I fully agree with that. So the majority of people here are saying, do it. Don't be a creep. But reach out and just see if there's any, if there's any opportunity. For all that, especially when it's somebody online, they could have a whole secret life on the other side. And that could be in so many ways. And like I said, the person that they put out to be in videos could be someone that's totally different. One of the things that Lester and I have been told it is something that I took as a compliment, and I know he did too, is when people have told us that when we are around them in person, that we're the same as we are in our videos. And to me, that's a really confident and complimentary thing to be. So There are a lot of people who have met their significant others online. My daughter met someone online and they celebrated their 12-year anniversary. I love that. Isn't it wild to think about how in years past before we had the internet that those people may never have crossed paths or met before? I remember reading this is kind of funny. I remember reading the personal ads in the Belleville News Democrat, and it was like a section, and it wasn't like those kind of personal ads. It really was dating and what they're looking for. It would be like single white female seeking single white male to go horseback riding or to go hiking in the woods. And it would be like the tiniest little ad, and it would be a number. And then what I would read about, because those were fun to read, they were really fun to read. They would call the number, like the 800 number, and then they would have to like type in the code of that person. And I'm sure there was a place where they had to pay to connect in that space, but like so long ago that was a way to find other connections. Because think about how connected we are in this world today, and how you can meet someone from all the way across the world, and you can find connections and commonalities and all of those things, versus just 20 years ago that we had none of those ways to connect. So it's interesting to think about now, of like, you see something online and you're like, I can just picture myself in that scenario. And interesting. Dawn says speed dating. I have heard of speed dating. And I have never done anything like that. I've never done any dating apps or anything like that. But I will say that the speed dating thing, we do speed networking for work, where you have to like sit down really quick and give the pitch about your role and what you do and all kinds of those things. But I imagine in a dating scenario that it's dynamically different. And it would be fun to watch a speed dating event. I would love to be a commentator at that. All right. So we have some more stories to go through. So the title again of the podcast is called Dear Jami. If you remember back in the day, there was a series or a place you could write into the newspaper called Dear Abby. And it would be everything from relationships to just questions they're seeking advice on. And that's really what I hope to be, is very similar to that, where people share their stories, want some advice. I should have started this whole thing with a disclaimer that says, like, I am not a professional at anything. This is entertainment purposes only. I'm not here to give legal, financial, health advice or anything like that. This is conversational and really just about the ability to share with others and to think together. Oh boy, y'all don't want me to move on. So the Lester Jami connection really stemmed from I was in town in Houston. I was volunteering after Hurricane Harvey, and with my company, we set up a clinic in the stadium to be able to, treat women during that time. And while I was there, and at the end of the day, I found myself unwinding, and it's a very emotional time, because it was just mayhem. Basically, the city's flooded, people are trying to clean up, and it's nasty. There's no power in a lot of places, and there's people everywhere that have been displaced. And I found myself looking online and just curious as to what else was going on outside of where we were. And I opened up and found this video of a man coming home to his animals, and you never see the man, and all you hear is the emotion and the distraught everything. And immediately I told my coworkers, like, I want to help. This is right here. I want to help. So my company helped me be able to gather things to be able to help this man. And I reached out, and that man was Lester. And he told me no. He's like, there's nothing to clean. There's nothing to do here. Like, it's all gone. There's nothing. And I just kind of demanded that I bring the stuff over anyway. And again, I never saw this man. I didn't have any intention of dating, or like that was the furthest thing from my mind. I just saw a man come home to 3 animals that survived a hurricane flood, and he was crying and distressed and all the things. So we came out and we unloaded supplies, animal food, all those things, and we exchanged numbers during that time, because at this point in time, I think it was either messenger or email that we were communicating. We exchanged numbers, and he just said, if you're ever in town, let's have lunch, which is a normal, like, casual thing to say. Fine. It was at a peak time in my life of just mayhem going on in my personal life, as well as just work and everything. So I went back and never thought anything about it. And a few months later, I somehow we became Facebook friends throughout that. A few months later, uh, I think that I was at a work convention and was up late and saw, this is back in the day when you could see who was online. And don't remember if I messaged or if he did first, but we started talking about paint colors and just life in general and just back and forth of things. And he's like, I still owe you lunch if you're ever in town. And this was all the way, initially was August, and this was already November-ish. And I said, well, that's funny. I'll be in town this weekend. And he's like, great, let's meet for lunch. And I was like, oh God, he wants to like really meet for lunch. So we did. And we met for fajitas. And I hold the story of that I ate my fajitas with a fork and that I'm a Yankee. And then he made fun of me. He also showed up in a full-blown like track suit, okay? And we had lunch and had a great time and laughed and again talked about just life and all the things. And even in that moment, I still was in disbelief about what was really happening, because I was half a country away. But it turned out to be something really special. And I don't know what brought that video to my I don't know. And I also don't know, what made either one of us message later on in life either. But I am thrilled that that happened like that, and I certainly encourage that lady to shoot your shot and see what happens. Okay. So the next video the next email comes from a lady, and let's see here. It says, "Hi Jamie. I'm not really sure if this qualifies as something you would even consider putting on your page. I know that you want to have a Dear Abby scenario, and I'm just not sure if this is something that you're aiming for, because it is a secret of mine. I have something that's been weighing on my mind, and I need to get it off my chest and tell someone, but I don't want anyone to know in real life." She says, "I don't work, but I do handle all of our family finances. My husband has never questioned where our money is being spent, as long as the bills are all getting paid and taken care of. He's very diligent in making sure everything is directly deposited on the 5th and 20th of every month. For some reason, the last time I withdrew money from the ATM, I had forgot about the $50 that I slipped into my makeup bag. A couple of weeks went by, and I discovered it, and I had a guilt inside of me, but also had this strange curiosity of how he didn't notice." It says that I thought it was really strange that he didn't even question me out of curiosity. And the next time that we stopped by the ATM, I stuck another 50 into the same place. Yes, anyone that knows the math can see what will happen from here. I'm embarrassed to admit that I've been doing it now for over 4 years. I have quite the stash of tens and $20 bills that I find myself hiding like it's some kind of game. Don't get me wrong. My husband provides for the family, and all of our needs are being met. All of my own needs are being met. He doesn't question me when I need things and is always surprising me with gifts and sweet nothings. and I have no idea why I have the desire to continue to hide money. I don't even know if I'm hiding it from him or if it's for him because it's really not my money at all. I haven't worked a single day. I have different places around the house where I keep the cash. I never want it to be all in the same place because if he finds it, he's really going to start to question things. I always have an excuse of what I'll say in case he does. So, like I said, what started off as an accident kind of turned out to where I feel like I'm embezzling money from my own husband and our own finances. Has anyone else ever done this? And how evil am I? So, what do you think? The thing is like, I don't like deception. Stashing for a rainy day is one thing, and having an emergency backup plan is, certainly something that I think is fine. It's just a matter of like, is she really? Carla says, "Oh Lord, Lord, Lord." I can't sing like that. Um, what's her angle by that? Is it like the ownership of like feeling like she has something? Because I've I don't have the experience of never working and having to rely on someone else. Alice, she's taking it and not spending it. She's just hoarding it, basically. There's other people who hold money back. It's a security feeling and for an emergency feeling. Amy says maybe there's something in her past that caused her to feel this way. I actually think that too. Like that $50 gave her a peace of mind. And I also, especially so traveling for work or things like that, I like to have cash in a secret pocket inside my suitcase and inside my laptop bag. And that is strictly for like peace of mind if I would lose my wallet or God forbid the power is out and I don't have a debit card that I can use and I don't have those funds. It's not a lot of money, but it is some money. And I wonder if it started out as something like that. Um or is it because she has a fear of something happening between the two of them? It doesn't sound like that. Joni says could be just coming from a spirit of poverty. And that's absolutely true because if you hold on to it and all of a sudden this is accumulated over time, now look at the savings that they have that maybe it wouldn't have stayed in their bank account because it was always visible and always there. Arcanature says she's a straight up hoarder. Maybe. Um, Dorothy says, coming from my experience, a woman always needs a stash of cash. So if she tells her husband, what do you think that that's going to end up like? Do you think he'd be upset? Do you think he'd just be like, wow, you've done a great job saving? I had no idea. It doesn't sound like he's had to sacrifice anything to be able to, uh, to be that. It doesn't sound like they're going without because she's pulling out that $50. Jane says he might actually know. You know what? He may very well know and just be looking at it as like, hey, just in case it's a peace of mind. Jess says my mom always kept an emergency stash of cash. I believe that my mother and grandmother have both done the same thing. Is it a woman thing? Do men do this? Sandy says I wouldn't tell him. Definitely depends on the man. It's interesting. I think in this day and age, it is probably not as common to have one person working and the other one not because we live in a world where it takes two incomes to survive. So it's harder to do that. But I do think that it's hard to come clean after all of that time and justify it, if that makes any sense. Like it's not hard to come clean, or maybe it is, but to justify how you've done it and kept doing it and how the thrill of it is probably like driving some of it as well. And maybe he wouldn't care because if it's just saving for a rainy day, if there's no malicious intent behind it, then, you know, then what's the harm in that? It may be something that they were able to save for in the first place. Florida native says, yep, it's a thrill. Donna says, hold on a second. Donna said something like, I should be putting these up. I'm not as good as the whole like show it. Hold on. Donna just had a really good comment on here, and it was basically like, my dad did it, and I think it said that he was buried with it too. Yeah, look. My grandpa did and buried it in his yard. Maybe it is her security blanket. Well, interesting. It's just one of those things where my advice would be like, if you come clean, what's going to happen? Is he going to ask you to stop doing it? Is he going to ask you to put it into the account? Is he going to be upset? Or is it there whenever something big happens and that you haven't, that you didn't know how it was going to be and it ends up saving you? For instance, like let's say the furnace goes out and all of a sudden that's her time to come clean of like, listen, I've been saving for a rainy day and today's the rainy day. And is that how you do it to be able to keep things justifiable? I don't know. But it is interesting to me of how many people in this chat are saying, no, I would love to have a stash, or I've done the same thing. Whenever I used to bartend, and of course tips were cash, which was lovely. I went 2 years without ever spending $1 bills. So if I got tips and they were $1 bills, they would go in a shoebox. And if I got change back and they were $1 bills, it would go into a shoebox. And that was my savings plan. I know that sounds like nothing, but in a time of being a single mom and working 3 separate jobs, dollar bills were my savings plan. And one year I was able to save almost $500 by just never spending dollar bills. And that was a very easy way for me to save, and it became fun. It became a game. It became a way of, just being able to put something aside. Somebody else says, I never spend $5 bills. That's pretty awesome. It's harder now because I don't ever have cash. So it's really hard for me to ever like try to do something that way again because it's all electronic. You get paid by direct deposit, just all of those pieces. Jamie, that is a bank teller's nightmare. I know, Miss Nancy, I'm so sorry. But it was fun because, I would only count it up like twice a year and it would be exciting to see what was left. And I bought Christmas presents with it one year. And then the next year, I think I ended up getting new tires on the car. But it added up quite fast. So it's interesting to me to think through about the this lady's dilemma. And I gotta say that if I was her, I would hold out until the rainy day conversation came up or like the need came up. Maybe not continue to do it. But then again, if nobody's noticing and nobody's going without, does it really hurt to pull that out? I'm not sure. Other people said that they never spend $5 bills. I love that. Or their coins. That's so wonderful. Lisa says, I don't work. My husband makes a lot of money, but he spends a lot of money. She goes, maybe I should start doing that. I've been in relationships before where the other person spends much more, and it is easy to be able to pull something aside as if they didn't have it. So, I think that's why they created things like they make Christmas clubs and they make other things that your bank can actually help you accumulate things that they just pull out each time that you get paid or things like that. Because maybe other people have a hard time of saving as well. A lot of people say keep saving it and keep doing it and just wait for that rainy day. Okay. Wonderful advice. All right. I thought I had one more. Hold on 1 second here. Okay. One more email, and then we're going to dive into a big secret. That one was kind of a secret in an email, right? So story slash email. All right, next up. This one's big. Remember, we are in a judgment-free zone here, and this is people seeking advice. Next up. Dear Jamie, I think I've accidentally cheated on my husband, but I'm not sure. As crazy as this sounds, I've actually thought with myself back and forth on the issue for the last couple of years. I'm going to try to explain here. I've always been a housewife, a homemaker, and I love with all my heart that this is my role. I've raised 4 children. I've even gotten one of them through college. I take great pride in that our home is always warm and welcome, and whenever our children want to swing by with their significant others, they pop right in. My husband works very hard, and for the last 22 years, he's gone to work, never complained, earns a living for our family, and just does his job well. I do my part around the house to make sure that he has clean clothes, a warm meal, and all of my other wife and motherly duties. But I will say, sometimes I find myself in the midday bored. And at some point, I ran across an old friend from high school. I'm not going to say any names. I'll just let you know that we had a really wonderful relationship when we were younger. That was long before I ever even met my husband. Neither of us were in a position to get too serious at that time, and at some point, we went separate ways. Along came Mr. Right, my husband, and I knew immediately that I wanted to marry him. We've been married for over 22 years, and we've been incredibly happy. He completes me in every single way. Or does he? I happened to see my friend on a Facebook post. I realized that we still had several mutual friends. I simply went to his page, got curious, looked at his photos, and within an hour, he messaged me because I hit the like button. I felt like it was wrong to even read it because even though I love my husband, I can't deny that I was curious about what he's been up to. What has he done with his life? I was happy to find out that he was also married and had children. They're close to the same age as mine, except for he's already a grandfather. We talked about old times, and what I thought would be one message became back and forth. Several messages started to happen every single day. I've actually asked him not to message me at certain times of the day for fear. I don't want my husband to run across these messages and not understand that it's completely innocent. But I found myself looking forward to those daily messages, and there have been many days where I've actually ended up writing him first. There's no way that my husband would ever understand or accept this. Even though it's just friendly, I must admit that if he and I met or lived any closer, I would consider meeting him for lunch. I've thought about it several times. He does still have family in this area, and I've never moved. He says this upcoming summer he plans on spending a few days in the area. And in my mind, I can't believe I'm actually considering possibly meeting up with him just to say hello. And therein lies my question. Am I cheating? Is it wrong of me? My husband's never done anything that I know of and would certainly never accept this type of friendship. I just don't know. Am I cheating? Obviously not physically, but emotionally? There's a lot of people saying yes, that is easy to do. Rita says she needs to stop it. My thing is that I can see how it started out innocent. Catch up, you get curious, how are you, all those things. But the ongoing piece of it is where I find like that feels obviously deceptive because she feels like she doesn't want her phone to go off whenever her husband's around. And while it doesn't say all the things that they talk about or, that type of thing, it's just the matter of fact of the staying connected. And then the thought that like that she might actually want to connect with him and see him. Like that feels like the ultimate no way, stop it now. And I do believe there's a lot of people saying this that it's emotionally cheating. There's a bug in my face. Um if there's anything in your messages that you don't want someone to read, your partner to read specifically, I believe that that's cheating. And I agree. We should stop. Somebody says that it's the mystery of life. Hold on a second. And it is very similar to women who read romance novels and get buried in that. However, it's like real life romance novel because you're doing it with a real person. Somebody says hook his wife up with her husband and problem solved. Oh my gosh. That is a man that said that. I can tell. Uh Top priority is your husband. If it's not something you do in front of your spouse, then don't do it behind their back. I think the emotional connection Bridget's talking about here is true. Emotionally, I think, especially as a woman, I think that emotions are really big for us. And the reason that we can escape into a romance novel or into a movie or find someone online that we, consider ourselves connected to because we are highly driven by emotions. Um, Somebody says it would be fine to go to lunch if you invite the spouses as well. Maybe. Or is it going to make her husband and his wife feel like it is so far-fetched that that they feel like outsiders in their own relationships of conversation because she and this guy have these ongoing talks and know so much about each other that there's not very much catching up to do versus that. There's no reason to talk to your ex. Exes are exes for a reason. Tabitha says, how would it make her feel if her husband did that? That's a very good question of if the roles were reversed. If you stumbled upon your partner's messages with someone from their past and whether they appeared to be innocent or not, the fact that they're on their mind and that they're conversing or that they are, just making it a routine to be a part of each other's days, I think that's a really hard pill to swallow of like most people when they are in a relationship or marriage for 22 years aren't sharing the how was your day text or the good morning, how did you sleep, like those are all that part of that part of the relationship is on, or I mean is over. So when you read those things that you reminisce about how it felt when you were dating them or you started out with them and you read those things from other people or between your partner in a conversation with someone else, I think that can be extremely hard. And it would hurt. I think it would hurt. So I do think that that emotional affairs are very real, and I would advise this person to disconnect. That's what my feelings are, and I think that most of you feel like that as well. It is a risk. Somebody says it's definitely not worth the risk. What if her husband finds out and everything in their life is, gone because she chose to, spend her time messaging this person? It's true. Misty says, don't recycle. Best to not do that. Solid advice. Okay. We do have a secret to share that is a pretty big secret. And this came even from an anonymous email. Like the email was clearly created to be able to send this. My hopes are that I am able to create a website. I'm working on the website to be able to have submissions that are completely anonymous, that don't require an email address entry. So if people want to share things like that, then they aren't tied to anywhere and there's no name attached to it for future. But that we're a little bit further away from having that done. The secret is a big one, okay? I'm going to tell the story. Uh, it's big. It's really big. So, this person wrote me and says, "I wish I was brave enough to tell my own story. My cousin is in prison for a horrific abusive crime, and he has no idea that I'm the one who put him there. I was stopping by his house to drop off a tool I borrowed from him, and when I knocked on the door, I heard a woman scream for help. It turns out, as he came to the door, I saw a woman behind him who was covered in blood, clearly distraught. She had an injury, but it didn't look like a fresh injury. He told me not to say a word to anyone. In fact, he said, 'You saw nothing.' I couldn't put it out of my mind and knew I had to do something to help, but I also knew that my family's very big on taking care of family. We're kind of the good old boys. I called the police, and he's now in prison as he had kidnapped this woman and had held her hostage for over 3 days. He hit her in the head with a hammer during their argument. No one in my family knows that I'm the one that called the police. And I fear the day that he gets out and tells the family that story, if he even knows that it was me." Can you imagine? Like, so many things, so many things. How do you not panic and freak out and want to jump in that moment, seeing what this person saw? How did you hold it together long enough to either call the police or go to the police? And the fear of like what would come had to have been part of this person's mind. And then like this person is fearing the family, clearly. Kudos to the bravery and the integrity for turning his cousin in, because I know some people that probably would not have turned their cousin in. I also know some people who probably would have taken that cousin to the woodshed and handled things themselves. But how horrible, and how like that image has to be ingrained in this person's head. And to carry this secret, because that's another part. They've carried this secret now for 10 years and haven't told anyone. I would think the cousin knows, but at the same time, maybe they lived in town, maybe I don't know. But like I just can't imagine the feeling of this person to stumble upon that scenario and then to be told like you didn't see anything. I just feel like that person, if this cousin ever gets out of prison, that this person's probably in danger. And some people have families that will side with the cousin. How could you do that to family? You know, how could you do those things? But he clearly saved a life, maybe multiple lives. Who knows how many times it had happened before, or if he would have done it again. There's a lot to be said about that secret. Somebody says it's a horrible family to protect a monster like that. I think there's a lot of horrible family in this world that will protect monsters like that. I think there's a lot of covering up and a lot of sweep it under the rug. Donna says get a protective order. Protective order is a piece of paper, and paper doesn't protect much, sadly. But to this person who shared this secret, that's unbelievable. And I'm grateful that you saved that person's life and potentially other people's lives. But I am nervous for you for the day that that cousin gets out. Crazy. Super crazy secret. Uh, somebody says it doesn't sound like the first time either. I agree. I think that the cousin saying, you didn't see anything alludes to probably the past of that person as well, and that is pure speculation. Um, but I just can't imagine. I can't imagine. I can't imagine what that woman felt hearing somebody pull up and thinking, "Oh my gosh, he's just gonna it's his cousin and he's just gonna walk away," and like that feeling around that as well. And then the feeling of the police actually coming afterwards and saving her. Unbelievable. Unbelievable timing. All right. So we've spent 45 minutes already talking about some stories and some secrets. And the final piece of our podcast really is around some conspiracies. I like to discuss one at a time, one per episode. And this one is something that was kind of brought to my attention today that I can't stop thinking about. So there is a man who does side work and digs graves for extra money. And he was helping allegedly. I'm going to say allegedly to keep my keep my keep my stories, on the I heard this and now I'm repeating it space. He was helping dig a grave and the coffin was on the stand and it was crooked. And he went to be able to reshuffle this. And when he picked it up, the coffin was light. So his friend who he was helping, the guy who'd been doing it for 20 plus years, says, "Why is it so light?" And he says, "If you don't want the answers, don't ask the questions that you really don't want the answers to." And this gentleman can't get over the fact that they were digging a grave for a coffin that was empty. So it brought me down this path, okay, of thinking about cemeteries. And I grew up in a tiny little town of about 600 people. And that town exists today. And that cemetery is the same exact size from when I was a child until today. They've not expanded. And I don't know that that many people get cremated, but people have passed away. And I don't also remember the last time that I saw a new cemetery. So when you think about the amount of people who pass away and are buried, and you think about the fact that cemeteries aren't expanding or getting bigger or more full, but people are still dying, what are they doing with the bodies? Where are they going with those? Now, there's a lot of conspiracy around the fact of, do they recycle plots? Are they stacking them? Are they, oh yeah, Mary Ruth says, are they selling them? The conspiracy world is crazy. Have you heard of something called blood diamonds? No, I haven't dug very far into that conspiracy theory, but uh, it is very much like that humans can be turned into diamonds. Ooh, Christy says maybe they aren't dead. Now that is something that I believe probably happens to the super elite when they need a fresh start. Like Elvis not being dead and the theory that Michael Jackson was cloned, and oh my gosh, now I'm diving into multiple conspiracies here. Cremation is very popular. Fully agree with that. And I do know that back in the day, they did family cemeteries. Even the Morrows have a family cemetery. But it is very strange because where I'm from, there's no family cemeteries on private land. There's cemeteries in the communities, and they aren't any bigger than they were when I was a kid. Anne says, Elvis is alive, Jamie. Sheesh. I saw a video of a man who looks just like Elvis, so I believe you. For reference, conspiracies, or the title of conspiracy theory, was actually created by the CIA. And it is really about giving a title to a different way to think. So I call it spiracies on this podcast. And really, I want to talk about different ones each week because I want to talk about different ways to think. And I just want to be able to open your mind and your eyes to be able to maybe recognize that not everything that's presented to us is exactly as it seems. Diana says, oh, Kimberly says, I want to be donated to science. What's funny is my dad sent me an email uh, that he signed up to donate his body to science. And he did so because he realized the cost of funerals and burials and all the things. And when he does donate his body to science, it said in the email that his ashes, once they did all of their things that they wanted to do, would be sent to my brother Josh, and that he just wanted to be placed in a mausoleum. And that's all he wanted. And that was the first time that I had actually ever seen a company that did that, and read into what was going on, and sort of what happens. Bridget says, what the heck is soylent green? I have not looked into what soylent green is, but that is a big part of the conspiracy world and what's happening to people. So I see a lot of other conspiracies and things that people want to talk about, and I promise that I will make note of those, and I will add them to future discussions. Soylent green is people, and it's putting them back into the soil. Okay? People turn to food? Now, that one I don't know. Soylent green is a movie. We will have to check that out. There's a lot of really interesting theories about this, and I'm glad that this was a safe space to share this week's events. I thank you so much for joining the very first Dear Jamie podcast. Today, if you have things that you want to share, whether it's secrets or just stories or seeking advice, you can email from suitstoboots@gmail.com. In the very near future, there will be a website called dearjamie.com. I'm hoping we can get that up and running. Well, it'll be much easier to submit everything, but this is our first attempt, and it will get better, and I'll get much more professional with intros and all of the pieces that go with this. And eventually, this will be available on Spotify as well. I thank you all so much for joining me and for being a part of this. And again, please send me your stories, your advice, your secrets, the things that you want to share, even the conspiracies that you want me to dive into and talk about with y'all. I would love to hear from you. And every Thursday at 8 p.m. Central, this is what we're going to do. I hope you all have a great night. I love you so very much, and I will catch you on the next one.